Charles Stanley's Life Principle 10. If necessary, God will move heaven and earth to show you His will. God always wants the best for us, and He is committed to showing us how to follow the specific plan He designed for each of our lives. He wants us to listen for His voice, to hear what He wants us to do and how He wants us to do it. Isaiah 30:19-21. When we begin to wander from the course God has set for us, He will take all kinds of measures to capture our attention and protect us from harm. He has a wide variety of ways to help us to take notice. Among them, 1. A restless spirit. Sometimes God gets our attention by making us restless. If you experience a restlessness deep within, something you cannot quite identify, then stop and pray. Lord, are you trying to say something to me? Each time God was about to move me from one pastor to another, I became very restless. 2. A spoken word. God also gets our attention by using the words of others. God gave a message to young Samuel and to old Eli the priest through this method. 1 Samuel 3:4-18. If several people in a short span of time begin telling you the same thing, then ask the Lord if He is trying to speak to you through them. 3. An unusual blessing. God may bless us in an unusual way to gain our attention. Of course, if you are an overly self-sufficient person, the Lord may more likely use some other method to get your focus on Him. But remember, note that no matter which method He uses, it expresses His love. 4. Unanswered prayer. Sometimes God will answer a prayer with no. Despite David's prayer for God to save his infant son's life, the child born through the king's adultery, the boy died. 2 Samuel 12:15-18. The Lord may close the doors of heaven and refuse to answer our prayers as a way of forcing us to examine ourselves. Disappointment. When the nation of Israel refused God's instruction to take possession of the promised land, God judged the people for their unbelief. They quickly changed their mind and said they now desired to enter the land, but the Lord said no, it was too late. Numbers 14. God got their attention through a tremendous sense of disappointment. In a similar way, God may allow setbacks to keep us from charting our own course. And 6. Extraordinary circumstances. Sometimes God will use unusual circumstances to get us to stop and listen. Moses saw a flaming bush that didn't burn up. As he approached to investigate, the Lord spoke to him from the fire. Exodus 3. You and I must learn to look for the presence of God in every circumstance of life. He leaves His footprint and handiwork all around us. 7. Defeat. God may use defeat to show us the truth. Following the Lord's stunning victory over Jericho, the Israelites approached a small town with overconfidence and neglected to fight in God's strength or with His guidance. Joshua 7. God got Joshua's attention by letting him fail miserably. But even a terrible defeat may prove to be the greatest stepping stone to success when we ask, Lord, what are you saying? 8. Financial troubles. In the time of the judges, when everyone did what was right in his own eyes, Judges 17:6, the nation fell into adultery and disobedience. God brought judgment through the Midianites, who devastated the land. Only when he took away every material belonging did they cry out to him. God knew exactly what it would take to get their attention. When they did return to him, he delivered them from their oppressors and blessed them. 9. Tragedy, sickness, and affliction. We should regard our tragedies and afflictions as reasons to inquire of the Lord, "What are you trying to say?" When King Hezekiah became prideful, God used illness to alert him to the problem. Similarly, when Saul of Tarsus persecuted Christians, God struck him with blindness, a tactic that certainly got his attention. God always knows exactly where you are in your journey of faith and precisely what it will take to get your attention. So stay alert. Notice if any of these divine methods are occurring or recurring in your life. If they are, ask him what he wants to tell you, and then listen, not simply to hear, but to obey. I'll give you another incident in my life when I think God was in control. I went through a period where I was sick. I can't tell you what the problem was, I just didn't feel right. I really got sick one night, and my wife took me to emergency. They kept me in overnight, finally got me settled down, and said they probably a 24-hour flu, sent me home. And a few days later, I ended up back in the hospital, still wasn't feeling well. And they kept me in and put me in isolation in a room for a week. Nobody could get in to see me without being all gowned up and everything. And they thought I'd contracted some kind of a disease like the hospitals were having at the time. Still couldn't confirm anything. But one of the doctors did come in and say to me the tests that they did indicated I could have a problem with my gallbladder. So he said we would set up a time to come in and see him and arrange for me to have my gallbladder removed. So anyway, I got my call stating I was to see Dr. Akinelli and set up the time for this to happen. At that particular day, he was seeing his patients at the hospital, which was unusual because he had an office away from the hospital. So anyway, I went in, and I'm sitting in the waiting room waiting to see him. There's a whole bunch of us there. And I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and we've been there for quite some time. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get this funny feeling, and I pass out. I wake up on the floor, 6 nurses, and Dr. Akinelli all around me. They thought I'd had a heart attack or something, and anyway, they got me, brought me around, and got me on a stretcher, and Dr. Akinelli came out to me and he said, "We're going to admit you." He said, "Tomorrow you will have your gallbladder removed. I don't know what time, but whenever it is, I can fit you in. You will have your gallbladder removed." So sure enough, the next day, it was 6:15 in the evening when they came and got me and took me down. I'm outside of the door waiting to go into the room, and Dr. Akinelli came out and he said, "This won't take long." He said, "It's only a short procedure, half an hour, and tomorrow you'll be going home." Well, to make a long story short, when I woke up, I don't remember being in so much agony in all my life. And I realized that things hadn't gone quite the way that Dr. Akinelli had thought. It seems when they tried to go in with laparoscopy, go in to remove the gallbladder, they couldn't get in through. There was something blocking, so they had to open me up. What they discovered was that my gallbladder had been completely eaten away by gangrene. And as Dr. Akinelli said to me, fortunately for you, you have a very strong immune system, and your immune system actually formed a bladder around the infection, and the poison from the infection was contained in this bladder. The reason why I was getting sick was that the bladder had now got to a point where it couldn't contain all the poison and it was leaking out into my system. What happened, I guess, when they opened me up, not realizing that this was there, they punctured the bladder and all the poison goes pouring out into me. The operation that should have taken 30 minutes was 2.5 hours. My stay in the hospital was longer than the stay from my heart surgery. I'm a very fortunate person that they caught it when they did. But I believe that God caused me to pass out in the doctor's office, because if not, he would have given me a date farther down the line. And if this thing had burst prior to that, there would have been no way they'd have saved me. So do I believe in coincidences? No. I believe that God orchestrated that particular visit to the doctor.